Hi, everybody. Today we're going to go through your Pacific West film notes. This is going to be your last movie for this class. Attached to this posting, you will also see that you have a copy of your Pacific West film notes, so make sure you're taking this information down because a lot of this stuff is going to be on your Pacific West quiz. So just be aware of that as we go through the movie. One last time with the music that you all, well, some of you love.
United States geography is a story of land and people. A land filled with natural resources, from the Rocky Mountains to the Sonora Desert, the San Francisco Bay to the Mississippi, the Grand Canyon to Niagara Falls. Since 2000 BC, when the Native Americans settled on this continent, people from all over the world have made this land their home. With lush forests, sweeping prairies, coastal plains, and bustling cities, the land is as diverse as the people who live here. North to south, east to west, each region of the United States is a piece of living history, shaping the heart and soul of the nation from sea to shining sea.
The Pacific West region is located in the extreme western part of the United States.
You can really see here just how far away some of these states are from one another. Look how far west, in comparison, Hawaii is and how far north Alaska is. So this region is not all grouped together. And a big thing to understand as we talk about the complexity of how varied this region really is.
The Pacific Ocean is one thing that all the states of the region have in common.
Number one, the ocean that touches all 5 states is the Pacific Ocean.
In most other ways, they are very different and unique. The region.
There you have the Golden Gate Bridge right there. We talked about this with your PowerPoint notes. If you ever watched the show Full House, definitely a big thing that you'll see on the introduction.
Is very spread out, making it the largest of all the regions. And it contains both the highest and the lowest points in the country. 5 states make up the Pacific West region. Along the west coast of the continent lie California, Oregon, and Washington. Separated from the continental states, Alaska lies to the north, beyond the nation of Canada, and Hawaii lies 2,500 miles west in the Pacific Ocean. While the western boundary of the region is the Pacific, the eastern boundary is formed by the states of Idaho, Nevada, and Arizona. The nation of Mexico lies to the south. Besides sharing the Pacific Ocean, all states in the region also have tall mountains. The Sierra Nevada Mountains in California contain the highest point in the continental United States.
Number 2 highest point in the continental United States is the Sierra Nevada Mountains. Number 2.
That means not including Hawaii and Alaska. That's because the tallest peak in the United States is Mount McKinley in Alaska.
Number 3 highest peak in the United States, over 20,000 feet high, is Mount McKinley, and of course that is located in Alaska.
It's over 20,000 feet high. The region also has volcanoes, some of which are still active. Recent eruptions of Mount Kilauea on Hawaii's Big Island have left this giant patch of black lava, new land that has grown into the sea. Every state in the region seems to be full of volcanic summits. Besides the highest point in the country, the lowest point can also be found in the Pacific West region. In fact, the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere is located near the Mojave Desert in southeastern California. Death Valley.
Death Valley is your answer to number 4. 280 feet below sea level, the lowest point in the entire Western Hemisphere.
Lies as much as 282 feet below sea level. It's one of the hottest places known to man, with temperatures often exceeding 120 degrees in the shade. The Mojave Desert and Death Valley are some of the driest places in the country. From hot and dry to cold and damp, every variety of climate can be found in the Pacific West region. Alaska is cold and colder, while Hawaii is, of course, very tropical. The West Coast states have the Pacific Ocean to moderate temperature into a generally mild climate. Yet, the variation of climate within these different areas is still very great. Alaska is the country's largest state and stretches nearly 1,200 miles north to south. As you might expect, temperatures vary greatly over this expanse.
Good dog. That's good. That's good.
The top third of the state lies within the Arctic Circle, where temperatures can fall as low as 80 degrees below zero. In the southern part of the state, around Juneau, summertime temperatures are pleasant, in the 70s. Juneau is the capital of Alaska. The climate of the continental states also varies greatly from north to south. Southern California is generally hot and dry, while Northern California, Oregon, and Washington are cooler and more moist, and green with trees. Yet, the variation from east to west is perhaps even greater. In the western part along the coast, it's very wet, and temperatures are moderate. But inland, east of the mountains, it's dry, with highly variable temperatures. What do you think causes this? The map shows that the Sierra Nevada mountains run north and south through California. In Washington and Oregon, the Cascade Range continues.
We'll go ahead and get to 5 and 6 at the end if you didn't get them. But number 7 here, 2 major mountain ranges found in this region. Here you have the Sierra Nevada mountains throughout California, and then the Cascade Range, which you can see starts in California and goes north through Oregon and in Washington as well.
Parallel to the coast. Storms bringing moisture from the Pacific Ocean pile up against the mountains and deposit their rains along the coast. Little moisture travels east of the mountains. This is known as the rain shadow. Seattle, Washington is a good example. This beautiful city on the edge of Puget Sound is known for its gray, rainy climate. This area receives an average of 160 inches of rain a year, making it one of the wettest places in the country. Now, just to the east of the Cascades, in the rain shadow, the average rainfall is only 6 inches per year. Because of the relatively warm ocean air, areas along the coast enjoy moderate temperatures, with less extremes. Even the climate in Hawaii has great variations. Not in temperature, which varies little, but in moisture. The same rain shadow effect can be seen behind the island's tall volcanoes. Rainfall varies from as little as 6 inches a year to as much as 500 inches. That's over 40 feet of water. The island of Kauai contains probably the wettest spot on Earth. In general, the Hawaiian Islands get plenty of rain to grow excellent crops. Sugarcane and pineapples are raised in abundance on large plantations. Tropical temperatures allow crops to be grown all year long. Other tropical crops that are relatively unique include bananas, coconuts, guavas, macadamia nuts, and coffee, grown on the large island of Hawaii. Now, in spite of such excellent growing conditions, agriculture today accounts for only 2% of Hawaii's economy. That's because tourism is such a gigantic industry.
Number 8, Hawaii's biggest industry, if you can call it that, because it's not like it's factories or things being made, but truly one of the best ways that Hawaiians make money is tourism and having people come and visit Hawaii because of the beautiful weather.
People come from all over the world to enjoy Hawaii's beaches and breathtaking scenery. The permanent residents of the islands today are a mixture of races and cultures, with the native Hawaiians, or Polynesians, mixed with Europeans and Asians.
The people here is what makes Hawaii. The people are a mixture of Polynesian and Asian. They mix so well.
Military bases are also important to the economy of Hawaii. This is a memorial to sailors who died here, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor during World War II. As abundant as agriculture is in Hawaii, the real breadbasket of the region is found in California. The Central Valley lies between California's coastal mountains and the Sierra Nevadas. Broad and flat and normally dry, this valley is irrigated with water from the north and is one of the most productive farm areas of the nation. Crops can be grown all year.
Number 9, the Central Valley. Crops can be grown all year long, so if you ever wonder when you're in the store, how do these fruits get there in the wintertime when Michigan is so incredibly cold, a lot of that stuff comes from the Central Valley in California, where it can be grown any time of year.
Fresh lettuce and tomatoes eaten in the wintertime are most likely grown in the Central Valley and shipped quickly by train or truck to towns all over the country. Due partly to its long growing season, California produces a larger volume of agricultural products than any other state in the country. Yet, agriculture is less than 5% of the state's economy. It's because California's economy is so huge and just as diverse. Nearly everything is mined or manufactured here. Industries range from the building of airplanes, satellites, and other high-tech equipment, electronics, and computers, to the writing of computer software. California leads the nation in industrial production. The sprawling city of Los Angeles is the region's largest city.
Number 10, Los Angeles, largest city in the region and second largest city in the United States.
And major manufacturing area. One fairly unique product of manufacturing here is the movies. Hollywood films are viewed by audiences worldwide. LA's popular Venice Beach attracts many visitors. Tourism is another very important industry here, and all over the region. California's amusement parks are famous. But the region's natural areas are perhaps its biggest draw. Beautiful beaches and spectacular parks abound. Yosemite National Park in the Sierra Nevada mountains. These giant redwood trees are among the most massive living things on the planet. Some sequoia trees are estimated to be over 4,000 years old. Thick evergreen forests cover most of the region north of central California, including Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. Cutting the timber for making lumber and for making paper is a major industry throughout the Pacific West. Many people are employed in cutting and sawing the timber and in making wood products. Fishing is another important industry in the region, both from the Pacific Ocean and from the many rivers of the Pacific West. Salmon have been fished by Native Americans here for hundreds of years. The adult fish must swim from the ocean far up the river, where they were born, in order to lay their eggs. Many hydroelectric dams have been built on the rivers of the region, causing the salmon population to decline. People who depend upon these fish are very worried. The most important river in the region is the Columbia, which forms part of the border between the states of Oregon and Washington. Ocean-going ships can travel as far as Portland, Oregon. The wilderness areas of the region also contain much mineral wealth. In the early days, people flooded to places like Sutter's Mill, California, looking for gold. There still are active mines in the region, but the real gold today is black gold, oil.
Number 11, referred to as black gold, is going to be oil.
Alaska's famous oil pipeline was to transport huge quantities of crude oil from wells in the Arctic Circle to ships waiting in Valdez Harbor. Including the offshore wells along the Pacific coast, the region produces a large part of the nation's energy. Alaska's largest city, Anchorage, was built upon the oil and fishing industries. It's grown quickly, even though Alaska is the least populated state in the Union.
Least populated state in the country for number 12 is Alaska. What's kind of interesting is Alaska is actually the biggest state in the country in terms of the land size. In other words, there's more acres of land in Alaska than any other state, yet they're also the smallest population. So kind of interesting when you see that disconnect in Alaska.
The nation's most heavily populated state is California, with its large cities. Besides Anchorage and Los Angeles, there are many cities in the region. Most important include Honolulu, Hawaii, Juneau and Fairbanks, Alaska, Seattle and Spokane, Washington, Portland, Oregon, San Diego, San Jose, and San Francisco, California, the unofficial capital of the Pacific West region.
Something I mentioned in your PowerPoint notes earlier this unit, just how many big cities there are, especially in California. But again, if it's the most populated state in the country, you understand why there are so many big cities.
Built on a hilly peninsula between the Pacific Ocean and a giant bay, San Francisco is considered by many to be America's most beautiful city. Its renowned Golden Gate Bridge has become a symbol of the city, and its role as a gateway to the Pacific Ocean and abroad. Many immigrants have come to San Francisco from the Pacific Rim countries. Chinese workers came here over a century ago to help build the Transcontinental Railroad. Today, San Francisco's Chinatown is home to Chinese Americans and to others.
You find different kinds of languages, dialects spoken here, all of those things that you will never see anywhere. We have the largest enclave of Asians outside of Asia, here in San Francisco's Chinatown.
Another important immigrant group in the region comes from Mexico. San Diego is the region's second largest city. It sits on the border with Mexico and has a large Hispanic population. Founded by Spanish missionaries over 200 years ago, San Diego was the first European settlement in the region. The Spanish priests established 20 more missions up the coast and controlled California for over 50 years. California then became part of independent Mexico for more than 20 years. In 1848, the United States gained control of California as a result of the war with Mexico. But the Spanish heritage is still strong in San Diego and throughout the state. An excellent natural harbor has made San Diego a Navy city. Another city started by the Spanish is San Jose. It's located in the Santa Clara Valley, South San Francisco Bay. This heavily populated valley is better known today by its nickname, Silicon Valley. Do you know why?
The reason why is because many computers and computer parts are made in Silicon Valley. This is the home of Apple computers, among other big tech companies.
Silicon is the base material upon which tiny electronic circuits are printed to make the microchips which run our computers. Many chips and other computer parts are manufactured in Silicon Valley. The people of the Pacific West region are on the leading edge of high-tech industries like computers, aircraft, and satellites. They've been well prepared by some of the nation's finest universities. The more well-known universities in the region include Stanford and the University of California system, with campuses in many cities like UCLA and UC San Diego, and the University of Washington. Well-educated workers, driving a high-tech economy in a region that is large and diverse, with great natural beauty, natural resources, and agricultural abundance. The vast, remote wilderness and sprawling modern cities, with great extremes of climate, spread over great distances. This is the Pacific West region.
I'll tell you what, if any of you can ever do this, I would come and watch, because this is some impressive stuff that this guy, I'm guessing he's from the Hawaiian Islands, is doing, just because it looks like something they might do at a luau, but pretty impressive stuff. But don't try that fire stuff at home, okay? We'll go ahead and go over this sheet to make sure you've got all your answers correct here, again, as we prepare for your Pacific West quiz. Number one, the ocean that touches all 5 states in the Pacific West region is the Pacific Ocean. Question number 2, the highest point in the continental United States is in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Number 3, Alaska has the highest peak in the United States, over 20,000 feet high. It is called Mount McKinley. Number 4, the lowest point in the United States is over 280 feet below sea level. It's called Death Valley. Number 5, the state in this region that's the biggest in terms of land size is Alaska. 6, the climate for this region varies greatly. 7, the 2 major mountain ranges are the Cascade Range and the Sierra Nevada Mountains. Number 8, Hawaii's biggest industry is tourism. Number 9, in what part of California are crops grown all year is the Central Valley. Number 10, largest city in the region is Los Angeles, California. 11, black gold is oil. 12, the least populated state in the country is Alaska. 13, the most populous state is California. And number 14, computers and computer parts in large part in this country made in Silicon Valley, California. If If you have questions, make sure you're messaging me. Make sure you're taking care of any late or missing work you have. Make sure you're looking at PowerSchool to do that. And have a great rest of your day.